Can you imagine how your future looks like? Some people say you should envision how your future will look like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. I find these questions incredibly hard to answer. But when I reframe the question to what are some of the scenarios that I would like to avoid at all costs in my future, and what are some of the scenarios that I would really like to have, it makes it a little easier. And all of these scenarios are in one way or another linked to money. And these motivate me to make smart decisions about what I do with my money today, so I can reap those benefits later. Here is my list, and let me know if any of these resonate with you. 1. Go into your sunset years without having to rely on your kids. Personally, I've seen a range of options in real life, and on the one hand, there are the elderly people who can sustain themselves comfortably and have the resource to help out the next generation, and that is extremely powerful. It is something that I really aspire to. And on the other end of the spectrum, some people retire and then rely on the pension that they receive from the government, but which is often not nearly enough to sustain their lifestyle. It degrades their lifestyle to a certain level of poverty. That's absolutely tragic, and it places a huge burden also on the shoulders of the kids. Then 2, going hand in hand with point 1. I'm actually convinced that governments will have to review the retirement schemes that we have currently, definitely in Europe and also other parts of the world. Many countries in Europe here often offer pensions when you retire from the workforce, and that means that the state pays you a certain amount each month to keep you going throughout your sunset years. And most governments use a pay-as-you-go scheme, which means that the pensions are funded by the current workforce. So the current workforce gets taxed, and that money then makes its way into the pensions. But when you look at the demographic trends here in Europe, the retirement schemes are not sustainable. Europe and other regions in the world are facing the issue that more and more people get into this upper echelons of the age demographic, and they stay healthier for longer. I mean, this is amazing on a social level, right? You get to see your grandparents and your parents for much longer, and you stay alive for much longer, which can be fantastic if you enjoy life. But that also means that if a bigger part of the workforce is retiring and living longer, that puts more pressure on the part of the workforce that is active professionally. And then we shouldn't forget, also with an aging population, we have another issue. Most of the healthcare expenses will be racked up towards the end of someone's life. So that also needs to be funded somehow. To wrap this point up, to me it's very clear that I should not rely on government-sponsored pensions, and I need to take this matter in my own hands. 3, I like the relationship I have with my partner, and I would like to keep it that way, or maybe even, of course, deepen it. And for that to happen, you need to develop a bunch of skills, as anyone in a relationship knows. But one of those skills is definitely being able to think and talk about money together. You see, around 40% of all divorces happen because of money-related issues, and a good other percent is about communication issues, which probably also means that people couldn't talk about money to start with. And I find that number just astonishing. And it gets worse, right? Because after the breakup, you still have additional strain on your finances for a long time. You find out that being single is far more expensive than being in a relationship with someone. Suddenly you've got to pay your own accommodation without any help. The same for foods, the same for a bunch of other actually costs that you have that suddenly can't be split up anymore amongst two, but you've got to bear all these costs yourself. And that is even before you consider additional aspects like alimentation for your kids if you had any. And I believe that much of this hardship could be avoided with healthier financial habits, healthier financial decision making, and communication on all of this. 4, and the next one takes quite some time actually to achieve, and it's something that I'm also trying to do with this YouTube channel, and also with my investments in various financial instruments. Growing additional income streams. I'm a firm believer of diversifying my income streams away from just the money that I get as an employee from my employer. Getting to that state takes time and investment. But once your other income streams are large enough, that actually gives you a huge benefit. It will afford you the luxury of choosing what to do with your time. Think about it. If you have enough other income streams, you can choose to keep working as an employee, or you could choose to do something else with your life instead. This is a choice that most people don't have at this point, probably when they're starting out with setting up these additional income streams. And so as opposed to many people, you'll have the option, the luxury to choose whether you would want to continue doing something with an open and free mind, unencumbered by the idea that you need to stay in the workforce to make a living. 5, having enough means to weather any storm gives peace of mind. As a student and in my early professional years, this was definitely not the case for me. My income was low, and that created a certain pressure at all times. Living paycheck to paycheck is hard enough by itself, but then it gets even worse when you start thinking, like, if something else happens, I don't know how to handle that. I would recommend everyone to seek the opposite of that, right? That you manage to gather enough resources that whatever happens, you know that you'll have enough to get through that phase, and you will be just fine. Which of these points resonate with you? Let me know down in the comments. And if you like this video, maybe you'll also like this other one where I talk about the key notions to understand before you start investing. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one. Cheers.